So welcome everyone. I'm so grateful you're joining both of us live today for our weekly Holistic Wisdom live, raising the collective consciousness of humanity. Today's special guest is, I'm so glad the Facebook is joining, syncing up with Zoom today. My special guest today is Cherie Aimee. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Aimee.
Cherie Aimee.
Yeah.
She's one of the most inspiring people, beautiful souls that I've met. And I just think that her story is so powerful. And our topic today is death, rebirth, and the process of transformation. So Cherie is a world-renowned near-death survivor, speaker, teacher, sharing her wisdom and awakenings from the heart. She's been featured in many top featured lists, business publications. She's been featured in a Hollywood film. And Cherie's now focusing on empowering other women to nourish their soul, embrace their unique gifts, and step into the leadership of humanity and planet. Wow, I can't wait for you to share your story and your beautiful essence with all of us. And leading up to this, I want to say over the last 2 months of me doing 3 weeks online by myself and now bringing all these inspiring people and sharing the stories, I find that especially now, most people are so afraid of death. And I would say fear is ruling most of people's lives at the moment. And more than anyone, you face the fear, this particular fear, you face the death, you've been there. I cannot wait for you to share your story. So please begin. Everyone enjoy Cherie, the most amazing person, one of the most amazing people that I know. So.
Thank you so much, Elena. It is such an honor to be here with you today. It really, really is. Thank you for that warm greeting. It's so incredible every time I hear my bio shared, because it just immediately takes me back to everything I've been through, and yet everything I've accomplished since then. And even more than what I've physically accomplished in my life, who I've actually become in that transformation. And this is the transformation of death to rebirth that I talk about. You know, it's really powerful, and it's something that as a human, you know, we cannot you can't get away from that. Right? And what's so unfortunate is that over the past several thousand years, we have been taught to fear death. You know, we've actually been taught that. It's really not so much that we ourselves fear death, it's that we've been taught that. We've been taught to be afraid of the unknown, afraid of uncertainty, right? I mean, if you think back into civilization, you know, times were a lot more rough thousands of years ago. You know, civilizations were not walking around with their iPhones and their calendar, and, you know, on the calendar, it's meeting with this CEO on this day, the next day getting my nails done, and then, you know, my spa treatment. I mean, you know, oftentimes common people didn't even know if they would have food the next day. So we have to understand too that where we are now as human is very different from thousands and thousands of years ago. You know, ancient civilizations that we read about, you know, or we sometimes get glimpses of in Hollywood movies, right? And I say glimpses for a reason, because the full scope of who we are as humans and what we are capable of has never actually fully been shared with us, unless you do the deep, deep digging yourself, right? And that's all part of this work in excavating our deepest fears in order to become the greatest essence of what our spirits came here to do in this lifetime. Now, that's a mouthful, right? So let me just kind of backtrack a little bit and share that, Elena, like you introduced me, I am a near-death survivor. So 10 years ago, I was running a very successful tech company. I had a whole team working for me, and I had incredible clients. And after building my own name for myself as a programmer, later project manager in tech companies, in engineering firms, and in advertising and branding companies, top branding and advertising firms. Um, I had felt I'd learned so much and was ready to utilize all of those skills into what made me most happiest. And that was serving really good causes. And by good causes, I mean projects, missions, people that had the values and the virtues and the morals that were aligned with what my soul tends to resonate most with in this lifetime. I learned so much in the corporate space, in the tech space. I would not be where I am today without taking that time to learn from the most skilled, brilliant, intelligent, resourceful, creative talent on this planet. I feel so blessed that I was able to take my life and submerge myself in around people like that, and learn from them, right? Not just kind of say, oh, this is my job over here, but I would take the time to learn from them. And I took those skills and I created my own business, my own firm that could uphold the virtues and the values that made me come alive, that made me say, this is why I'm on this planet. This is why I exist. And so fast forward, I ended up getting sick in the middle of this successful business. It also happened to be the time that I met my husband, started my now husband, started dating him. He already had 4 children, so I now welcomed not just him, but 4 children into my life as well. So I went from single, successful tech CEO overnight to like family woman, trying to navigate all of a sudden having like, instead of going to the club and dancing, dancing the stress off of working in high pressured, tech and branding fields, to, oh, wait, what's my role as like stepmom, yet also I haven't been a mom before, like also knowing there already is a mother. So what is really my place? It was a very, very interesting time in my life. And in the midst of that, I got married and 2 months later was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a rare form of cancer, but it's also highly treatable. So I underwent 6 months of very intense chemotherapy and had very severe side effects. I would not wish those side effects on anyone on this planet. It was horrendous. It's a part of my brand I've probably never really gone into because there's so much else of my story that most people know about. But I will share with you, especially, because this is holistic wisdom, what the therapy and the treatment did to my body was a very frightening experience. And I want to share that while I had always been very holistic in eating and taking care of my body, all fresh foods, all, I mean, people would call, my nickname was Dr. Cher because I was so into healthy, fresh, clean, whole foods. I did, yoga 7 times a day. I was physically fit. And I was just up on all the holistic knowledge. So one of the reasons I love connecting with you is you remind me of that time in my life, and you represent that divine feminine spirit that's really here to remind us of holistic living and where we come from and how we can feed and nurture our bodies so that we are the most optimized in health. And so I was along that lines, even though I was in the tech space, who I was as a person grew into being very spiritual and very connected to my foods and my body and meditating. So it was very unusual for the environment I was working in, right? So again, just to paint a picture of who I was before my health crisis. So when I had cancer, I had to decide, like, am I getting chemotherapy even? Like, here I was talking all about holistic living, and yet here I was staring my own mortality in the face. And what was I going to choose? Number one. And number two, I had all eyes watching me. What is Cherie going to choose? So there was a lot of pressure on me. And I remember at first saying, I'm not going to do chemotherapy. Like, I will believe in another way. And I went to so many different doctors and holistic doctors. And one of the biggest turning points in my life was they said to me, Cherie, I get it. I want to tell you not to do chemotherapy either. But one of the things you'll learn with cancer is that there's so many different types of cancer, and they affect everybody differently, and they affect the body and parts of the body differently and at different speeds, rates. It's very complex, right? And it's very easy to lump it all into disease, which it is. It is all disease. It's all disharmony in the body. But when it comes down to that final treatment, that decision that I learned had to come from the deepest part of my core. And I'm sharing this part because I didn't know the future. It was very uncertain. What I heard in one ear was my friends, holistic friends, telling me, you can't do chemo. Are you crazy? And on the other hand, I heard doctors, holistic doctors, top doctors, telling me, we get your concern, but there's not enough data and research to justify you not taking the chemotherapy. And the type of cancer you have is actually curable. And by curable, it means not only is there a treatment, there is a set regimen. And it's 98.9% effective, that it will cure your cancer. That is a very high percentage for any type of cancer. So I bawled my eyes out. When I decided to go ahead with chemotherapy, it was under the agreement and the commitment I made with myself. And that agreement was I'm going to do this, but emotionally, I'm going to connect with myself on an internal level in a way I've never allowed myself to do before. And I'm going to believe in this treatment that they are giving me. But I'm also going to hold space for what I know to be true and what I know that my body also needs. And that is the holistic treatment. And so what I did was I took responsibility and accountability of my own health. And I sat down with my doctors and I said, I will do this chemotherapy and we're going to work together, right, to keep my body strong. And that meant I need you to not poo-poo any holistic treatments I bring about to the table, but I need you to take me seriously, embrace it, and honestly let me know if there are contraindications and also what things I can do. But what I will not have is somebody sit there and laugh at me because I want to figure out my own body's way of healing through this. Long story short, I did survive the chemotherapy and I did become cancer-free. Where my near-death experience comes in is that about 10 months later, I started having trouble breathing. And it turned out I was in heart failure, but nobody caught it. And so one day my husband decided there was something seriously wrong with me. And he took me into the emergency room. And it was there that I flatlined right in his arms. And that's really the beginning of where most people know my story and my brand story that I've been sharing for the past 5 years. It was this moment where I had cardiac arrest right in my husband's arms, and I happened to be in the emergency room. And I also happened to be positioned at the right time, divinely, in the right place with the right people around me, because CPR did not work on me in the emergency room at all. And they were ready to call my time of death in 5 to 10 minutes of CPR chest compressions. And there was one doctor in that emergency room who knew me. He was actually one of my doctors. And he refused to give up. And I'm sitting with you today because one doctor said, we are not calling her time of death. We are going to keep going. And they continued with CPR for over 90 minutes, no luck with restoring my heart rate or my heartbeat. So I want you to imagine that after an hour and a half of CPR on a young woman, I was very young at that time, and I still am. But I was young. I had my whole life ahead of me, and yet I was laying there in front of them dead for over an hour and a half. And because of this one man making this choice, he ordered everyone to do what they needed to do because they were in such shock. They were in what do we do? She's dead. And I ended up being attached to this form of ECMO, heart-lung machine. You probably heard in the news lately. And I was transferred to New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City, which is one of the top cardiothoracic hospitals, I believe, in the world. And it was there that I remained in a coma for about 3 months. It was unknown if I would survive. I was in very, very critical shape. And it was during that time when I first flatlined that I experienced what I came to realize medical researchers had coined the term near-death experience. And that is when you have a medical event where you are clinically dead and you experience these determined incidences that these researchers have just, they named it the near-death experience because so many thousands of us around the world had very, very similar stories of what would happen when we flatlined. And for those of us that survived and were able to come back and tell it, it's been, it brings a lot of hope and courage to people that have lost loved ones and also those that are going through really uncertain times. And so, of course, during that near-death experience, I experienced a spiritual awakening that rocked my world and showed me how the universe really works. It showed me why I got sick. It showed me why things had happened in my life that I felt like I couldn't get out of. Reoccurring themes and patterns and stuck karma, cyclic patterns that I felt I had been destined to remain trapped in my whole life. And when I came out of that experience 4 months later, survived the whole ordeal and came home, I didn't talk for about a year. Number one, it was hard physically for me to talk because I was on a tracheostomy and a ventilator. You could see the scar on my neck. My lungs had been damaged. But number two, I didn't know what world I was in. I didn't recognize this place. It was very dense. It was, I couldn't relate when I would overhear conversations. I didn't understand why people were worrying about the things that they were worrying about. That's how much of an awakening my near-death experience was. And if I were to share all the details, which I have over 5 years, but all of what happened to me in the afterlife could literally take 4 to 8 hours of me to share. This isn't your usual, oh, I had a near-death experience, I saw the light, and now here's my message. I experienced everything. I experienced a full-blown life review of not just this lifetime, but all of my soul's lifetime. And the decision to come back here was only made with the understanding that myself, I would never, one, close down my heart to anything ever again. And number two, that I would clear my soul of the karmic cyclical patterns that were keeping me stuck from truly showcasing the love and the light within me that I saw in heaven. And coming back here, and what many people have been witnessing me authentically and organically doing the past 5 years has been the full expression of that commitment that I made to myself to fully step into, without fear, the clearing of all that I am not, so I can step into all that I am, and that light would be my gift to humanity. And I didn't know what that would look like. And the uncertainty that was very scary the past 5 years. And what I can tell you that really, really relates to what we're going through now is that there is no one that's going to come save you. You know, it's not true. Whoever told you that, it's not true. The Savior is in you. And it's in your ability to go within and face your darkest, scariest shadows. And the shadows are your fears. They're the parts of you that you have hidden from your, not only the world, but yourself. The pain, the hell that people describe. Did you see hell in heaven, in the afterlife, Cherie? Yes. The hell is right here. The hell is not facing those dark demons within you and slaying them so you can become the full embodiment of the healing that this world is needing right now. You don't come back from a near-death experience perfect. And I really want to showcase that. I want to share that my brand was never to come back to be somebody's guru. I don't want to be your guru. I don't even want to fix you, because I know that you are not broken. I know that you have been lied your entire life, since the moment you were born, to think that you were broken, to think that you had to be and look and act like somebody you are not for a reward that's not even real, because the reward is outside of your body. And that's why we have so many people out here walking around not happy. It doesn't matter how many 7, 8 figures a month you bring in. I don't care. I don't care. That does not impress me anymore. Because I know that it's very easy, especially in a digital realm, to create the perception, the illusion, the very same illusion that we cannot stand, that we see in our governments and in our corporations. But we're too afraid to look at the own illusion we are creating for the people around us and ourselves. The illusion, the lies that you are telling yourself. That is the real hell. That's the hell. Not because we can see your hell, but because when you go to sleep at night, when you cry yourself to sleep, it's your body and your soul's way of saying to you, you are a pure, beautiful spirit. There is nothing that can ever harm you. There is nothing that can ever be taken away from you. And that media, that television that you're watching every day, those Hollywood films, all of that, I am so sorry, but all of that has been breaking you down year after year after year, to the point where you can't trust that the fact that you wake up the next day and the sun is out is enough. You know? And uncertainty can be very scary when you don't know your true power. Very scary. We're seeing billionaires. You feel their fear right now. You feel it. The ones with all the money and telling you they're going to make you that $1 million secure life. Are you kidding me? And yet, if you really tap into their energy right now, you can feel their fear. Their fear. Because they've created an image where all you know of them is money. and power. And this is what makes me valuable. And without that, I know that you will think I am nothing. So they now need to fight even harder to cover the fear, instead of allowing yourself to come on as a leader and be vulnerable. We need more vulnerable leaders in this world. We don't have that. And that is why you're seeing so many of the foundational structures of our world collapsing with just a simple breath, like, and it all came crashing down. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the power that is in women to give birth, to create life inside their bodies, birth it out into the world? Can you imagine if that creation just collapsed with a simple no? Because what our power is, that power in the divine feminine of authenticity, of ethics, of integrity, of love for our fellow people, that is an innate quality. That is an innate divine feminine quality that has been strategically undermined in our society and our civilization for 5,000 years. And you don't know it, because that process of strategically stripping our planet of evidence of our power was hidden from us purposely. And so you never got to know your power. And when I say divine feminine, I'm talking male and female, men and women. We all come with both masculine and feminine energies. And I know you know this, Elena. And for those who are hearing that for the first time, it's because that has been hidden from you. And those of us that have been trying to come forward year after year after year to help you remember our history, our ancient civilization, our ancient power to overcome anything, we have been labeled cuckoo, woo-woo, right? Like any name you can think of. We must suppress the truth. And the only reason I can now fully, with power, come out and share my real message from my near-death experience is because the globe, our society, our foundations, our very foundations of society right now have collapsed. And so now I know that you're listening to me. Now I know that you can energetically hear me when I come back from heaven and tell you you have been lied to, that you are more powerful than you ever knew yourself to be. Because up until the pandemic, that was just another Hallmark greeting card, right? So we are in extremely, extremely uncertain times. And the reason I'm able to get up in front of a stage, an interview here with you today, and own my power and speak from a place of knowingness, not a 5 bulleted checklist, right? I used to think there was something wrong with me because I used to think I wasn't a good leader because I didn't come on with my step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4,
Mhm.
and don't forget step 5,
Yes.
click like and subscribe. Bye. See you tomorrow. I used to think something was wrong with me. I told myself over the last 2 years I wasn't a good leader. And that's why I've done very few of my own personal videos coming on, connecting with my tribe. Because what it has taken to show up in the world in a very, very big way is not easy. And Elena, I know you know this. I love your brand. It's so beautiful, but mostly because the essence radiating from it is so authentic and so organic. You're not loud. You're not having to scream at the top of your lungs, I am, right? Because that's what it requires to really get seen in a big, 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 big way. And I chose to dive into that for about 3 years because I just knew I had such a deep, deep, energetically resonating message that I needed people to hear. And so I chose to get loud. I chose to play the game. And I said the very same quote every single day to me that one of my biggest inspirations, Iyanla Vanzant, wrote. And this quote is the same quote I told myself on life support. 4 months, not knowing if I would live another day. And the quote goes, I can do anything for a little while. I can do anything for a little while. And so I courageously took a deep breath and I went after that attention with a fierceness that had to come from somewhere else other than me, because I'm normally very quiet and shy. But I knew that there was a bigger mission than me. And I knew I needed the support of other microphones to help propel my soft voice. And so I took that deep breath and I channeled something bigger than me to get noticed over and over and over and over again. And I would channel it and I would show up in my bigness. And then I would come home and I would sleep. And you guys didn't get to see the recovery of that. But that's what I would sleep and I'd have to cry it out. I'd have to cry out the pain of the world that I would feel, and I did it. And now I'm back here, back in my body, back in my authentic wholeness, so I can tell you the truth of who you are. And so I can authentically, in my power, show you the exact same process I use to go deep within me and alchemize my own deepest inner fears into a power that gives my soft voice a resonance that pierces right into your heart, so you feel me and you know that I'm talking to you. You can't fake that, Everything in this world, you can look to nature. Everything is about growth and then death and then rebirth. Life is a transformation. We are all going to die. We are all going to die. Take that in. What does that mean? What does that feel like? What is that pain? What is that pain you feel? The pain for me was I was afraid if I died, what would happen to my family, right? It's probably a big one for a lot of you. What would happen to my loved ones? Terrified of that. When I crossed over, I found out they were going to be okay. That there was no separation between this world and that world. That's a lie that you were told. The veil, there is no veil. Your loved ones who have passed on are right here with you. When I crossed over, I was right here. I could connect with people in this world. I could feel your pain. The pain of not knowing whether I would survive. And it hurt. It hurt me because I knew I was okay. And I wanted you to know so badly that I was okay. In heaven, I wanted you to know so badly that I was okay. And that you would be too. Right? So, uncertainty is just a situation. It's just a name. It's just a label we have given what really is the gift of life. It's the natural progression, the natural cycles of death and rebirth. And when you can clear yourself of the hurt and the pain and the fear, and truly understand that from heaven, I wanted you to know I was okay, right? So if you yourself were to clear your own fears, you could allow your loved ones that passed on to live a beautiful extension of their life because you've done your own work. Your own work of who am I now without that person in my life. That's where the work is. It's not that they died. It's that who am I now with that void. The uncertainty is the void. And we hate that feeling. The void of emptiness, of not knowing what's next. Who am I? What does this mean? What is my identity now? And so in all scenarios, whenever we hit the void, either individually or as a collective, it's the opportunity to dive deep within your soul to figure out what is that void trying to teach you about yourself and about your deepest, darkest secrets that you don't want anyone to know. That should your bank account go to zero, you don't go and jump off a building. Because you would only do that if you felt your value was tied to something external outside of you. Right?
I think, Cherie, you've touched on so many points so deep. I'm sure for every person that's listening to you now. For me, you have touched like I had tears in my eyes listening to you, wanting to say yes to absolutely everything that you've said. I'm so grateful you came back. I'm so grateful we connected because it's so beautiful. And I'm emotional because because I feel this great love, not only that you are, that I am,
Mm-hmm.
and that humanity is. And
Yes.
let me collect myself for a second.
I
Yeah,
want to invite you to not have to collect yourself.
yeah,
I really, because I told you before we got on, we were going to create a healing right now.
yes,
And the healing is that we have to learn to be okay
yes,
with our emotions.
yes,
No more lies.
yes,
No more lies. No more illusion.
yes.
We're done with that.
So beautiful. You know, you talked about your awakening. Every person goes, I'm sure, through their own journey of awakening. My wish is for all humanity to awaken. And perhaps it's through such deep, authentic, vulnerable conversations that we can bring to the surface that can touch something within a core of each human being to recognize that that exists within them as well. For me, it was also a very interesting journey, but the reason I wanted to briefly touch on so many things you talked about, not only with my work, but of course my mom who passed away 3 years ago. And the one of my biggest fears, I had two, and maybe there are more, and I like to face my fears.
Yes.
One of them was speaking out in public because I always felt I wasn't good enough. So like you said, you weren't recording yourself. For me, that was a huge thing. Like I felt with all my degrees and knowledge, I was not good enough. And I'm not a loud person. So for me, it's a very subtle way of communicating. And it is energy exchange. The second thing was death. And that was my biggest fear, besides being on stage, is dying, because it's a part that I knew I could never control. And it's that control that we all try to have over uncertainty. And it is so relevant right now. What's happening in our world, in our society at the moment, is that is the biggest fear. And I think it takes a lot of courage to face that. And what helped me overcome that fear is watching my mom so courageously, she had cancer, go through chemo, go through all the surgeries she went through. She had stage 4 stomach cancer, so they had to take her stomach out. I mean, she was completely with it. She was 63 years old. I had the gift of speaking with her until the last week before she passed away. And the gift that she gave me, not only life, giving birth to me and being an amazing mom, and truly like this divine feminine energy, she gave me the gift of letting go of fear of dying because of how she embraced it so beautifully, and she made it okay. Like I felt like that was safe. So it's interesting because I see so many people are afraid of it, and I understand that because perhaps they never had that example, that gift of having someone so close to you help, like almost holding your hand gently with an open heart and saying, it is okay, I'm okay, it is safe. And of course, she didn't talk to me about all the things that you went through. But I know right before, I remember it was just she and I in the room, in the hospital room, and she was already going in and out of consciousness. She opened her eyes, I was holding her hand, and she said to me, I'm seeing something so magnificent. It's a beautiful, magnificent light. It's unlike anything I can ever describe to you, but just trust me, it is so beautiful. And I want you to know, because her dad passed away a few months before, and her aunt too. She said, they're all there for me, and I'm ready. And she said, just know how much I love you, and everything is okay. And she said to me that I know that you know that we're never going to be apart. I will always be able to communicate to you. And that made me feel so safe and not afraid. So,
Thank you.
so beautiful.
It's so true. I'm so grateful that you share that. It's really important for people to understand and hear
Yes.
this, because it really is our core fear.
Yes.
And what happens is when we cannot breathe through the awareness of death, I mean awareness.
Yes.
Like, we live in a world that wants to pretend it actually doesn't even exist, which is why we're so afraid of the beauty of death.
Yes.
I love that your mom gave you that gift.
I want to touch on something too that you said about being in this holistic way of living, and then you were diagnosed with cancer, because I can so relate to that too. So for me, who works with people, and I'm in the health industry for so many years, I remember my mom being diagnosed, and she made a decision to go with chemo because that was what the doctors told her, and I had to honor that and respect that choice. And I remember at one point being so upset. I remember sitting next to my mom in the hospital because she had to have her stomach taken out. Part of her esophagus had to go out. It was just a really difficult time. And she was still hopeful. And I remember sitting and being so angry at all the angels that I've always believed in, and everything divine that I believed in. Like, how could this happen? And the gift that I received from that experience is every one of us has a choice to make. It's not about controlling. It's about honoring and respecting what each individual wishes for, even if it means that it's out of alignment with what you envision for that person, because you have to love and hold that space for them to go through that journey. And that was a difficult moment for me, knowing I couldn't save my mom. I couldn't. And I so wanted.
I feel you. It's such a gift, isn't it? It's such a gift. That anger that you felt,
Yes.
that was the gift.
Yes.
That was the gift.
And the awakening part of that is exactly what you said and what I've been teaching. All the healers you're seeking, all the magic you're seeking is not outside of yourself. It is within. And it's not about getting a cure, because everyone wants that quick fix. I want a vaccine. I want a pill. I want whatever it is that we all want to fix right now. It is truly a healing journey that takes place inside. And like you said, thank God you had your doctor that was there, knowing what he had to do. He was part of that journey, and it's honoring you as an individual. And it is about for us to take our full responsibility for our own healing, for facing our own shadows. And I always say our biggest fears and our chronic conditions and our illnesses are our biggest gifts, because it's only through that we can truly learn how powerful we are. And I am just so grateful that you are here with your beautiful message and just your beautiful divine essence. I feel the love and I'm so grateful for you. And
So grateful for you too, Elena. I'm so, first of all, I want to share that I always know I'm on my right path by the souls that enter my world. At different times of life, people will enter into my world, and it's always to take me to another level. Sometimes people enter your life and it's painful, but if you heed the call, it's always trying to take you to that higher level. And so sometimes I have people that enter my world, and their one role is to help me express myself more fully in the world. And sometimes that looks like a business coach, right? It's not about business. It's nothing to do with business, right? But we have these labels for ourselves. Okay, it's about business, but it's not about business. And so we have to understand that our souls are always trying to come back home. And the home is within yourself. That is where your power is. It is not on the latest lipstick. I'm sorry. It's not about following the person with the clearest skin.
yes.
It's not. Like, I want to share that when I work with clients, within the first 5 minutes of me talking, they all do the same thing. It's one thing. They all do the same thing. They go, wow. Oh my God, wow. Cherie, thank you. I had no idea. I had no idea it could be that easy. Because the journey into the self doesn't look like what you're being fed in marketing.
Yes.
Right? You and I know that. That's not it. But it's the golden treasure dangling in the wind that keeps you like a dog chasing after something you will never attain outside of you. But you're so conditioned from the world to look at the beautiful skin, the flowing dress, and to say that I need to be that. I need to look like that. And I think all I need to do is to be around that person and find out how she stands like that, how the dress flows in the wind like that, how to position everything so that I can now come on and emulate the same flowing spirit, but in a way that will actually be my downfall, because it's not coming from within you.
That's right. I call it the fake God and goddesses.
Yes.
Last year I wanted to understand the complexity of what makes up our reality. And you were touching on it at the very moment. This is the core, because I wanted to understand why I didn't feel connected to any of the marketing strategies, because to me, they're all based on manipulation.
Yes.
False sensations. It's selling sensationalism and one formula that is supposed to fit every single human being on this planet. And to me, it's the same thing as if you were to seek a medical treatment. You cannot say this one vitamin, this one pill is going to fix all your health problems. There is no such thing. And it's the same thing in this. This is the matrix hijacking that I'm calling, is looking at all these gurus, all these goddesses and gods that are portraying and selling themselves, which we do have a great, of course, way to get out and reach mass amounts of people. But again, it is creating an illusion and a dysfunction, because majority of people think this is how I'm supposed to be happy.
Mm.
And it's really not, because it's about finding out your unique divine essence, tapping into that, and it does not look anything like the picture that you're seeing on the ad.
No, absolutely not. And this is one of the reasons why I think you and I connect so well, is we both get that,
Yes.
you know, and that I really, I think part of why we're bringing this up is it's rare. It's rare these days to find other raw organic leaders, because we're not that loud. And I'll give you an example. My brand gets a lot of attention if I come on as like the tech woman, or if I come on as what's the word? Like, here are my 5 steps. Right? Like, that's when everyone comes running. What I noticed when I soften my energy and I actually just allow myself to channel what's flowing through me as a vessel of pure truth coming from my highest alignment out into a transmission to you. It's the energy around me quiets down. And because everyone that could truly benefit from that message is over here, distracted by the loudness of, yes, spiritual abundance, money, yachts, Bali trips, 50,000 a month, and you can have it all, right? Like that. Here's the thing. I don't blame anyone, because we have all been lied to. We have all been lied to that is the only way we can survive, is by not trusting the divine spirit, but by packaging it up, painting a pretty picture over here, and fighting to the death for attention.
And that is actually, you were talking about the divine feminine energy, which exists in both males and females, is really trusting and connecting for that essence to flow through you.
Yes.
Packaging it and putting it out and shouting out from the top of your lungs. This is a very masculine kind of energy that's been hijacking, but also toxic feminine that's been hijacking the divine feminine essence that exists within each and every individual.
Yes. Absolutely. This is, I studied a lot with Carolyn Myss. It's Carolyn, and then her last name is spelled Myss. If anyone listening has not heard of her, look her up. She is more of the embodiment of what has helped me literally die, come back to life, and thrive. It is not the loudness over here. When you look at her work, she talks about, I'm trying to remember the terminology she uses. She's so brilliant. And mostly because she's been studying mysticism. She's been studying, the ancient ways. She's been studying at what point that divine feminine knowledge was cut off. And I realize now those are the leaders that are helping me reach this next phase of my growth. I've actually returned not to the leaders you see online that are loud. These are leaders that have more done the studies, like academic studies, into at what point did the feminine energy get dismantled and cut off and hidden from the world. That is very different from the overnight cookie cutter churn out the next coach, that churning out, like, you know, it's incredible. Like, that is not spiritual coaching. That is, come in, pay me some money, set this up. Here is the template to create your sales page to attract the vulnerable people. Get them on, get paid, and then work it out. And then work it out on their dime, on their time, and at the detriment of their wellness. In the name of spirituality. Oh, really? Is that how I survive life support? Because I just got a mentor overnight who showed me how to market my message? Is that how my soul came back from the afterlife, back into a very dense world that is created by a powerful strategic illusion? And despite it all, I am still day after day after day, tears through tears through tears, showing up to get this more authentic message, not just into the spiritual community, but into the business community, the leaders, the people that are building our actual core foundational structures to this physical world. And then I'm going to be judged for not being spiritual enough because my marketing language doesn't sound right. Right?
Yes.
But this is the great shift we're in right now.
Yes.
This is why, as much as there is pain in this time, I just lost a friend this week. Okay, so, and I lost my dad, 2 months ago. So when I speak about this, I am talking from complete experience and understanding that the pain is still something that I work through every time it comes up, right? This is why we're here. This is not overnight become a millionaire. No, that is not why you're here. And my message has never changed, even when my dad died, even when my friend just passed away this week. I cried all day. All day before I found out he died, I had been crying the entire day. I didn't know why. I was crying for humanity. I was crying by feeling the energy. There was nothing going on in my life, but I felt myself crying all day. And then that night, I found out he had passed that morning. We don't understand our power and how connected we are. And we're so distracted. One of the reasons I went back into technology was to truly understand. And I thought I had more time than this until the pandemic came. But I went back in to understand why I couldn't understand why I couldn't get the attention of more people online. I had no problem getting media attention and all that because they saw it was a powerful message. But I couldn't get the attention of our everyday people online. Like, what more do I need to? I just proved I can do all get this attention. So I'm legit, right? But why can't I get the attention of the people in my network? Why? What is being fed into their eyes and their ears that they are chasing this? So I went back into tech because so much had changed since I was a CEO. And I learned what was happening at a very, very complex level that I realized was so complex and also so dangerous to talk about that I had to go within and find peace with not so much coming out and saying, this is what's happening to you, but finding what is my real role in here. Now that I know all that's happening and the masses, people listening don't even know. Now that I know that, what do I do with that information? And I had to remind myself of why I'm here. I am here to remind you of who you are. And that's about it. That's actually about it. Like, that is so hard when you have coaches screaming in your ear, Cherie, why aren't you making 9 figures yet? Cherie, your message is too, nobody knows what you're talking about. You don't have that bite-sized, grip them quick message.
Yeah, because it's all supposed to fit into the matrix, which is an illusion. And this is why we're seeing everything falling apart at this very moment in front of our eyes.
Yes.
Because it is all built on manipulation. And manipulation is having to stop. And we're seeing this actually across every country, across this entire planet. People are questioning. Some people are either going really high up and awakening, and others are falling deeper into their fears, but it is happening. Something is happening on a big level, big scale. And this is why your message, my initial message, was not being heard, because I'm not here to manipulate people. I'm not going to tell them fairy tale stories. That's it.
And we don't, and here's the thing though. They most people, because of the manipulation, they can't recognize what a voice that's not manipulating them should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar to abuse. When someone's in a physical abusive relationship, and or let's say they had abuse growing up in their lives, and then they grow to be an adult, but all they really know, they know that abuse is not good, but energetically their body is so conditioned to experience a frequency of
Tension.
yes,
Fight or flight.
yes, so conditioned that feels like home, that feels like safety, that feels like normal. It's very similar when you are trying to come out into the world and share truth. I recently wrote something on, social media. I have removed it since then because it was part of me kind of experiencing an unfolding process within myself and visually sharing it authentically and vulnerably with the world so that more people could see where my strength comes from, and that I want you to see that great leaders are not born from manipulation. They are born from an excavation of who they are not and stepping into who they are. And so this was a very difficult thing for me to do. But in it, I really, and I will be publishing this, at some point as well. But the point is that it's going to take diving deep and trusting that the more powerful message is going to come, and shift that we need to lead humanity in a more harmonious direction. You have to come and ask yourself, how did Martin Luther King be who he was? How did his voice echo throughout the country and the world? Where does that come from? And why have we not seen that since? It's a question I asked myself ever since I was a little girl. I didn't understand, was that like a superhero that just kind of came out of nowhere for a while and then was assassinated? Like, I was very confused as a little girl, because who was this person? Who was he that he could sound like that against so much oppression and hatred on a systemic level?
Mm-hmm.
Where does that kind of person come from? And I think we honestly have not seen that level of courage in a very, very, very long time. And it's why I think, looking back, I always had tears in my eyes when I heard people like Martin Luther King Jr. speak, when I heard JFK, and when I heard Princess Diana.
Mm.
There was something growing up that,
Yes.
and this is part of what I wrote in the story, and I was talking about Martin Luther King, about I didn't feel worthy of their message. I would choke up. Because I didn't know what that feeling was in me. And it was this buried sense of emotion and shame and unworthiness that they could pierce into me and awaken. But I didn't live surrounded in a place that was a safe container for me to experience and explore that emotion. And it was the same with Princess Diana. I'm like, why would I be crying over her? I live in the United States. I barely knew her. I'm crying over this essence, this energy, that every time she walks into the room, I just want to start bawling. I didn't understand that.
Yes.
I didn't understand what that power was. I thought, I don't know what I thought. I was too young. And as I get older, it's hard on, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's hard when I hear the speech, I have a dream. The tears come flooding and I have to almost turn it off because it's so uncomfortable for me. And what the pandemic and this big pause lit up for me was, Cherie, the world needs your light, and the world needs your voice and your face and your messiness and your
grace.
Your grace. And why am I still sitting back? And I knew there was something deeper, and so I had to go deeper and I had to explore. And it ended up being my own it ended up taking me back to what was it about all those people and what was that pit in my stomach and in my chest that I couldn't express. And out of that is what I authentically showed online. And it was been my biggest fear my entire life. It was the theme of nightmares and waking up screaming in the middle of the night with figures literally trying to strangle me. Um, that is the fear of everything of my life that has held me back.
So today,
Despite the success.
yes, I would say today's message really is to invite people to step into their courageous, authentic selves, but by first facing their biggest fears. And we are right now facing our biggest fears and embracing them as our biggest gifts that will help us, I would say, expand our wings and take off the way we're meant to, and question. It takes courage to question every system. It's not about blindly following and believing and making somebody who is having an opposite belief of you, having them be wrong. It's really about respecting and honoring all, trying to see the perspective of all, but yet honoring yourself, listening to your inner voice. So I think for today, the most powerful message you gave to every single person is not be afraid of your biggest fears, right? And just step into your authentic self fully.
Absolutely.
We need you.
That's where the medicine is.
Yeah.
And like, we were talking earlier, that is the part that is in the midst of all the illusion you're seeing. This is the biggest illusion.
Yes.
So while you're going to see a ton of videos, this illusion, that illusion, no. The only illusion you have to focus on is the illusion that you were never shown where your greatest power is, and that it is within you. And when you unleash that, everything else will fall into place. You will find the alignment you have been seeking your whole life, and you will find your mission and your path and the reason why you exist.
Yes. Beautiful. How can people find you?
The best way is to go to my website. That's CherieAimee.com, CherieAimee.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining. This was such a meaningful, profound, beautiful conversation. And thank you so much, Cherie, for sharing your beauty and magic. I'm so grateful you exist at this time. I'm so grateful we met.
Yes.
And I have an idea, so we'll log off Facebook and I'll share this idea with you. So
Bye, everyone. Thank you, Elena.
bye.